Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Just Enough to Suffer. My name is Lou. I'm here joined by my friend Greg, as always. Jay cannot be with us tonight, but we are here to discuss a very disappointing loss to the New England Patriots. I almost said Green Bay Patriots just now. I'm a mess.
Either way.
I was at the game today, so I think we're both going to have a lot of things to say here. I think Greg had his come to Jesus moment, so we'll get into that. But there was a lot of things I feel like I missed because, between the penalties, the interception that wasn't reviewed, and a bunch of other things, I feel like there was a bunch of stuff I missed. So, Greg, why don't you tell me kind of, your big takeaways from the day? Obviously, disappointing day for Zach, disappointing day all the way around, but give me your big takeaways from today's loss.
Yeah, I mean, it's, we talked about it on Wednesday's show that this was kind of going to be the make or break. And it's tough to say that it is because there's really not like another option right now. So it's just going to be played out. But it was very clear today that Zach's just not the guy. And it's frustrating because we saw in the first half him kind of get into some sort of rhythm and they were moving the ball and they ultimately didn't end up scoring a bunch of touchdowns. They had that one to Conklin, but it really felt like this was a team that they could move the ball on consistently. And I felt like the play calling was good. They're rolling him out. He was hitting his receivers when he needed to. And then after that interception to end the half, it was just kind of like a what the fuck is happening type of thing. And the throwaway that the first one that got, from McCourty, it is what it is. It's super frustrating. I was more upset about the second one, I think it was, where he threw it to Conklin.
Well, there should have been like 5 interceptions today. So
yeah, well, the one to Conklin that got intercepted was one of the worst things that I've ever seen from a quarterback, period. Like that's just day one stuff. I like how the defense kind of responded with, we talked about it on Wednesday's show, how New England's probably going to run a little bit of a hurry up and they gashed them to start the second half. And it kind of felt like that was going to be their MO for the whole second half. And, they let up the touchdown, and then they responded and, they didn't really do anything outside of that the rest of the game. But yeah, I mean, the main thing was Zach, and it's very clear that this team, and it's different from like a Sam, right, where you keep giving them a little bit more leash because the teams just weren't good. But it's very clear that this team is a team that could compete for the playoffs, and it's the quarterback that's holding them back.
I agree with you. I think, unfortunately, the game was put into Zach's hands to win or lose, and he lost. I think there's multiple things that went wrong today. Nothing obviously bigger than Zach's decision making and the interceptions and the almost interceptions and the throwaways that float in the air for an hour and a half and all that stuff. Setting that aside, I think it was the first game without Brees. It was a big issue.
Setting that aside. It's just funny because that's like the main reason, despite the throws, the non-throws, the throwaways. If you put all that aside,
setting those decisions aside, right?
Yeah.
Like the offensive line was a problem. Zach's running around a lot. Yeah. I can understand where he's coming from, where he says throwing the ball away gets frustrating or boring.
Right.
I don't remember the exact quote. I can understand where he's coming from with that. But he just doesn't know how to live another day. Like he just can't do it no matter what he does. And I understand, I respect that he wants to try to make a play. He almost had a touchdown to Carter in the end zone on one of those plays. That's the thing. What'd you say?
It was really good play by the D. It was a perfect throw, just a really good play by the DB.
Yeah, it was a good play by the DB, and I think those were all the things that everyone was all excited about when he was coming out. He has all these off-schedule throws, and he can throw the ball really far. He can throw the ball really hard. He can do all these things, but when you're playing in the NFL week in and week out, and you got a coach like Bill Belichick who, for a living, eats young quarterbacks alive, you just can't make those mistakes over and over and over and over again. He got lucky a couple times in the first half with dropped interceptions and passes that probably should have been intercepted that weren't. And then, like you say, right? I think I hated that call and that interception. That should have been a run to me. I thought it was very odd. We were cooking that 2-minute drive. It was fine. We were moving the ball at the field fine. Didn't love the play call, but either way, Zach's gonna get the ball there. There's no excuses for the ball not getting there. And then, coming off of that, just to get into the game a little bit, coming off of that interception, you obviously have the pick six that never was. And I think, listen, we can get as mad as we want about that as fans, and the team can, yell and scream and say he hit him too hard or he didn't hit him hard enough or it's soft or that's not football or
It's the way
whatever,
it's called.
whatever.
You have to adjust.
It's called the same way every single week. And that's not the first time JFM's done that. And I get it. He wants to be able to go full speed all the time. And the coaching staff will take that penalty and blah, 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 blah. No, that's fucking ridiculous. It's the second time it's happened. I think it's the third or fourth time we've been called for it overall this year. And it negates a big play. I think, I have questions about why. I don't understand the rule I think the explanation that Salah gave was that the ref said that he hit him too hard. I don't understand that. I also don't understand how a thing, right? Like Mac throws the ball and then he gets knocked down. Somehow that negates a pick six. I don't understand how that makes any sense from just like a rule standpoint.
Right.
But whatever. Pick six that never was. They find a way to score anyway before the half, and they came out and just blitzed us in the second half. Like I don't understand how you're not ready for that coming out of the second half. Like there was obviously it's a big deflating moment where you throw the interception and then they have the pick six that, like I said, the pick six that got taken away. They score points. They come out of the half and just were in the no huddle, which we saw with our own. Like I'm not an all 22 guy. I'm not a nerd. I don't watch tape all the time, but it was very obvious that Denver got us into a hurry up situation and we were lost. And that was Brett Rippon, and Mac Jones stinks, but he was able to execute the offense a lot better than I think people were expecting, myself included. And at that point, the stadium just died. I don't know how it felt on TV, but the stadium was dead. After the interception, after the pick six, after the coming out of half, they scored the touchdown, and it was just like, oh, the game's over. We lose.
Yeah. Well, CBS, I think, is gone downhill because you couldn't get a feel. You couldn't get a feel for the stadium juice at all. And I know you were texting the group. You, Sean, were texting the group before, and there's a lot of juice to the stadium. You really couldn't. That didn't really convey to the TV screen. CBS, like, they just refuse to show replays for shit that matters or good replays. Didn't see anything on the Barrios like punt return that was a touchback. They showed quite literally the worst possible angles of the McCourty interception on the sideline. Like, it was just all bad. But yeah, I mean, we talked about it last week. We talked about the hurry up. We talked about how they were going to try to, it seemed like the blueprint was out for this Jets team was throw underneath and let guys run in space. They did a lot of that today. Some of the tackling in the backfield against Stevenson was disappointing. Runs that should have been either no gain or tackles for loss or a minimal gain turned into 30, 45-yard runs, which are immediate drive killers for a defense. And New England took advantage. They didn't miss any field goals. The Zerline field goal that would have tied it at 13 was a killer. But yeah,
by the way, that was running to the kicker that went uncalled.
It was a illegal contact, which the Jets have been called for. Illegal contact made after 5 yards on Barrios. Very obvious. The guy held him.
They ran multiple pick plays that just went uncalled. It was
the touchdown to start the second half. Like, someone's got a screenshot of it where
the third down,
the touchdown, the one they scored on.
Touchdown.
I mean, the tight end's blocking in the end zone when the guy catches the ball. Not called. I don't get that. But I mean, it's, we're kind of just nitpicking now, right? Like, that's shit that, happens all the time. It doesn't get called. But, like, it's just super frustrating to know that, this was, and the CBS kept propping it up like this is still big, bad New England. And it's clearly not.
No, they are not good.
No.
The Jets weren't good today and they beat themselves. Like, I'm not going to pretend to sit here and be like, oh, the Jets should have won the game. They shouldn't have. They should have lost. They played like shit. The Patriots are not very good.
No. And I mean, the Mac stuff, the
he's a fucking loser, by the way.
Quote unquote slide where
he's such a pussy. He cries about penalties every single play. He cries about everything. I hate him.
Yeah, but I mean, Connor, our good friend Connor Rogers brought it up on the SNY post game. Like, you have to know that's going to happen in the next game. You have to know he's going to try to bait the refs into those 15-yard penalties. And at home, it's probably going to work. So that DJ Reed call, it's probably getting called a penalty next game in New England. Whether it's right or wrong, it's probably getting called
the late hit?
It wasn't even a late hit on DJ. Mac was still in bounds.
Yeah, but
that shit that gets
and I respect. I was going to say, I respect DJ sending a message there. It was very obvious what was going on. New England was trying to get in our head, and like that was happening. It was chippiness from the go. And it kind of boiled over towards the end of the game a little bit, that nothing ever crazy happened, but it was close. And the other thing I wanted to say was, and again, we're nitpicking and it is what it is and whatever. The refs are like all over Saleh. Everything he does, they freak out. I think it was the CJ Mosley late hit that they called on Mac.
Mm-hmm.
Saleh's like talking to them from the sideline, like, what are you guys doing? And the ref's like pushing it. He's like, go back, go back, go back. It's like they're all over him because it's very obvious when they're making a mistake, Saleh just doesn't let them eat it. And Saleh just doesn't let it go. He goes to them and says, what happened here?
Yeah, and I mean, he's not doing it in a way that's showing up the ref. He's just legitimately pissed. Like, I think people forget that this game, like football and NFL football at the highest level, is like we talk about. You have to be a psychopath, like mentally, physically, emotionally. It's just a supercharged version of everybody. And I don't think he does it in a way that tries to show the ref up. But the Jets have gotten called for a lot of bullshit penalties early on, and you can tell that it's starting to get to.
And we're not getting calls either. The Brees call in Green Bay. There was
Mm-hmm.
multiple calls today. And then I'm sure there was some even before that I'm not even remembering anymore.
Right. I do want to ask you, because this is kind of just something that as the game unfolded, it was kind of racking in my brain. Did it feel like New England was, once we got towards the second half, they were almost like trying to get Zach to roll out? Because it kind of felt like the interior pressure and the way that they were pressuring was like a way, and maybe this is just like galaxy brain, like I'm thinking too far into it, but to me, it looked like they were trying to get him outside of the pocket, knowing that, the chances for a mistake were going to be higher.
I don't know. I'm sure someone will be able to break that down during the week and talk about it, but I will say on the interception on the sideline, he has Mims. Mims had a step on the guy like immediately, and Zach rolled out and he pumped. He got scared. And that was when I was like, oh, we got problems here, because he was very scared to throw the ball down the field. And that's a problem.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I mean, it became more apparent after the picks, but there's a good chunk of throws where he's just not trusting himself, and they're open throws, and they're not going to be, game breakers, but they're going to move the chains. And it's that 1 second pause where he pumps, and it's like it's open and it doesn't get there in time. The Mims play, there's a split second where he's open. You have the safety screaming over, which, obviously is going to happen. But if you throw that and you kind of lead it to the wide receiver and put a ball where it's either going to be an incomplete, the safety's going to have to make an incredible play, or it's a catch. Like, you just got to trust it at that point. You can't. You got to.
He's made the throw several times, so we know he can make it. He's just gun shy. That's what it is.
Right, which is crazy, because like that's the reason why you take a guy like him as high as they do, because.
And that's not even the things that he makes mistakes on. The things he makes mistakes on are the other stuff.
Right. Like, if that's going to be open, there's only going to be 1 or 2 times a game, if that, where throws like that are going to be available. You have to take those shots, whether it's completed or not. You have to take those shots. You have to give your guys a chance. And, it's a weird thing to kind of like put it all together, where last year we were like, okay, he needs to be safe with the ball. And then he became a little bit too safe, in the last 4 or 5 games. And now it's, then he's pressing, and then it turns into the interceptions again. But it's like, it's fixable things. I just don't know if we're going to get to a point where he fixes it. I mean, the interception to Ty Johnson or whatever, that's just fucking bad footwork. He's fading away. He's throwing it off his back foot.
He does that all the time, though.
You have he's
gotten worse since he got back. It's gotten worse every single week.
First throw to Conklin, touchdown. Beautiful throw. Stood in the pocket. There's a guy
stepped into the throw.
It was a split second away from getting a strip sack, and he was there and hit it perfectly. Stayed in the pocket, feet set, great throw. And then you see these other throws, and it's just like, not even when he's pressured, there's like a slight little bit of pressure, or a possibility that the pressure is going to be coming in, and he just loses all fundamentals. And it's super frustrating. And I really don't like. I don't think it's fixable at this point in his career with the Jets. I mean, it's going to have to be a drastic turnaround, and he's not going to be, afforded the liberty of, I think, the time to be able to fix that, because this team's ready to compete right now. I don't know what the options are for quarterback after this year, but to me, it's going to look like, you have to roll with. I think you have to roll with Zach at this point, which sucks, because it seems like the guys are. They're not off the ship, but they're putting the life preservers on, and they're getting the boats ready. And Mike White's not any better, so you can't go back to Flacco. So it seems to me
Well,
like
we'll talk
it's,
about that little interesting little nugget where Mike White was promoted to the backup for some reason that doesn't make a lot of sense. But keep going.
but it's like it's going to be, hey Zach, and I think it's the right thing to do. Figure it out. Either figure it out or we're moving on.
100%. So like that. So this is what I wanted to get to. I think I wanted to take 15 minutes here for us to just get all of our shit out and
Mm-hmm.
get our anger out. I've been in a bad
Yeah,
mood since 4 o'clock. I feel a little
it's been
bit better right
terrible.
now. There's a couple different ways this can go, right? I think from the beginning, what we've always said, you and I, what every fan has said at the beginning of the season was, this is the year that we figure out what's going on with Zach. We
Mm-hmm.
knew that we were pretty close already, right? Like we knew we had the talent, and we knew after the first couple of weeks that the rest of the team was pretty good, and it was the quarterback that was going to be the decision. I don't think it's imperative to full send, right? Like we don't have to bench Zach. I saw people talking
No,
about trading for like Gardner Minshew, and I saw
relax.
all those things today. Like that's not what we need to do. I would prefer, and this is like with all respect to Zach, with all respect to everyone involved, like if Zach's gonna sink, he needs to sink. It can't like no half measures. This is what we
Mm-hmm.
talked about. No half measures, no fucking around. You don't have Brees Hall anymore. I love Mike Carter. Very clear he can't carry the load after today.
Yeah, he's
James
not a.
Robinson needs
Yeah,
to ramp up a little bit, and that's no again, that's no disrespect to Mike. Like that's just not who he
no,
is as a runner.
no, not at
So
all.
James needs to get himself. He looked pretty decent. He had a couple good cuts. I saw he was I thought two things. I thought his cuts were really good. I thought he was like half a step slower than I thought.
Yeah, so the big thing is that like he's kind of got the movement that Brees does, but his breakaway speed is just it's not as good as Brees's.
Well, yeah, that's why Brees is Brees, right? I mean, like, yeah,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, but no, like it's a good point. Like Michael Carter's a great player, a fine player, and I think a guy that is going to be here for a pretty long time. Because I don't think he's contract wise once it gets to that
Mm-hmm.
point. But he's a guy I think that they need on this team if they're going to run this 2-back set. But like you said, no disrespect to him, he's just not a guy that can carry a full team's running duties, and that's not a lot of people in the NFL can.
Yep, very few
But
people
yeah,
can.
I'm with you. You have to, we did this with Sam, right? Like we did this, kind of with Mark. The AFC Championship things were, it kind of throws everything out of
No, there's
whack.
never been a situation where we've never been
No,
this close while also simultaneously being like, okay, we definitely don't feel good about this. We need to like let him go.
no, but I'm saying like I think it might be more so the Sam thing where it's you just keep kind of kicking the can down the road and that's I think it's an indictment on the team as well, right? Like you
Back
don't have a
then.
good enough team, yeah. And now, yeah, it's put up or shut up time with Zach. Like, and is that fair? Who knows? But this is the situation that we're in,
Mm-hmm.
and if they're a quarterback away, you can't go into the next season being like, well, and that's another thing I see is, oh, well, all these people are out. It's like, okay, the team's still 5-3, right? They're still competing in these games. This is a 1-2 possession game today. Like they're in these games. You have to, if we can't go into the offseason being like, oh, if this guy comes back, then we'll see what Zach. They have the talent right now. Figure it out. Figure it the fuck out.
Yeah, it's there. And I don't, just based on how everyone was speaking today after the game, and
It was a very
the energy I
testy.
saw on the field was interesting. Shout out Mike Carter. Mike Carter was trying to pick everybody up after those interceptions. He was the first one talking to everybody, trying to get everybody calmed down, trying to get everybody focused. Shout out Mike Carter for that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I think that kind of puts a bow on the game. It's upsetting to beat yourself and to beat ourselves in the way that we were scared was going to happen. The
Yeah.
exact thing we were scared of is exactly what happened. They let Zach go, and Zach made a bunch of mistakes over and over again. So it is what it is. I think, Buffalo next week should be interesting. Really looking forward to that. But getting into the whole post game situation, the first thing I want to talk about was what we brought up before with Mike White. He was elevated to the backup quarterback prior to the game today out of nowhere. After the game, Saleh said something to the effect of, "We just want to know what we have in case Zach gets hurt." I don't
Mm-hmm.
quite understand why you need to elevate someone to a backup position if that's what you're going to do. You can just make that decision whenever the fuck you want.
What do you
So
mean?
there's no reason that you need to say Mike White is the backup just in case Zach gets hurt. Like in case Zach gets hurt, well,
Yeah. Okay. I get what you're saying. Yeah, it was a weirdly. I get what he was trying to say. It was just a weird way that he said
I
it.
know what he's trying to say too. But what he said was, in case
Yeah.
Zach gets hurt, we need to find out what we have with Mike White.
Yeah.
I would say we know what we have with Mike White. I don't think we need to
Pretty
pretend.
sure I know what
I
we
feel,
have with
and I
Mike
love
White.
Mike White. I feel pretty confident that we know what we have in Mike White. But that was a message. I think there'll be more to be revealed on that one.
Good.
That, or I thought maybe they're trying to trade Flacco and they're just putting him on ice. But maybe they're just like, hey, Joe, like, thanks for your service. See you later, just in case something
Hello,
happens.
Kansas City. Would you like a slightly used Joe Flacco for
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes? Please answer my texts.
And then the other big one was your boy, Elijah Moore, with some really disappointing comments after the game. Like, I get the frustration. I really do. I know he feels like he should be doing more. I know he feels like he should be more involved. I agree. But you can't come out after the game when you know what question is coming. You know it.
Mm-hmm.
And what you say is, I don't get the ball. I don't know. He
doesn't want to make this about him, though.
Doesn't want to make it about him. Feels bad. Again, I'm going to tread lightly here. Doesn't want to make it about him. Feels bad about the ruckus he caused last week, and comes out after the game today and immediately starts another firestorm. Like, you want to talk about putting your quarterback in a bad spot, and we're not here to defend Zach Wilson, but like putting your quarterback in a bad spot by being like, I don't get the ball, I don't know what my chemistry is like with him, is like, you know what's going to happen on Monday and Tuesday? Well, probably not Monday, but Tuesday when the players get in front of the media, they're going to ask Garrett, they're going to ask Brax, they're going to ask Conklin, they're going to ask everybody, what's your chemistry like with Zach? What do you think about Elijah's comments? Like, this story isn't going anywhere now. And I think, he also, what he did was make it clear that he still wants out. I think the team gave him an opportunity to come back this week and practice and suit up and play his 5 snaps or however many snaps he played in the game. And he decided to keep going, and that's fine. Like, that is clearly the direction he wants to go. I don't expect that the team will put up with that for very long because, again, Zach played really poorly today, left a lot to be desired on the field. You do not make it about yourself in that moment and say that I don't know what my chemistry is like with him because he doesn't throw me the ball.
Right. The whole situation is just wild because, I mean, he talked about how he was upset it went public, which, okay, but it's also
facing persecution.
It's 2022, and you and your team decided to request the trade. Like, the shit's coming out, right? Like, what do you need?
There was a big argument at the facility. You left. Everyone thought it was going to be fine. And then all of a sudden there was a trade request. So it's very obvious what happened.
Right. So I just don't understand that. And you're right. Like, coming off of a tough loss like this, where it's very easy to pile on the QB, and rightfully so, that's just one where you just say, next question, next question, next question. Like you said, you know those questions are coming. You have not talked to the media in a week and a half since you had the trade request. You know those questions are coming, and then you still give that answer. And it's frustrating because the team's 5-3, a lot of talent. They're and the team. I think the team does a good job of, look, if you want to be here, we'll embrace you. We'll give you all the opportunities. If you don't want to work hard, if you don't want to, buy into the system, okay, that's fine. But don't complain when we're not going to use you. You know
what Garrett Wilson said after the game today? That he needs to be better.
Yeah, and look, Elijah's a great guy, right? Like, we've met him. I think he's a super nice guy. He's a really emotional player who believes in God, which, I mean, we could have seen this coming from a mile away if we saw the
I think it's more about, I think it's just very, and then after, like, his first tweet after the game was like about AJ Brown, and it's just, I get it. I think everybody gets it, and it'll be what it'll be. I think we have a very interesting week ahead now. I thought that it was going to be okay, but I think that there will be an interesting week ahead leading into the trade deadline. When is the trade deadline? Like November 5th or something?
I think it's this week at Wednesday or something.
Yeah, so it'll be like, November 3rd or 4th or something like that.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so I think we'll see what happens with that because I don't know. trying to defend Zach and not defend Zach, but just see it from his perspective. I don't know how you approach that because
The what, Eli?
Because Zach's been very publicly very in support, and I'm sure in private very in support, because what I saw today on the sideline was everyone trying to pick up Eli and try to make Eli feel good during the game because he's struggling. Like he's not getting the snaps, he's not getting the targets. Like it's understandable why those things are happening, but it's really difficult when you continue to throw your quarterback under the bus for that guy to defend you and to feel good about going into a game with you every week.
Right. And I mean, we've talked about it. The body language has been bad all year on the sidelines.
Body language was bad today.
Yeah. So, yeah, like, what do you, like, it's very clear he wants out, right? And then they put you in, and then you say shit like that. What makes you think you're going to get the ball if you're staying here? You know, like, so you're just going to be put on ice for the rest of the season? Like, I just don't know the end goal. Like, you know, if they're not going to trade him, then okay, you're going to have to just sit here and sulk, right? Like, is that what you're going to do all year long?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just a super frustrating thing when it really doesn't need to be. And we talked about it earlier. Saying shit like doing that after the Green Bay win, which was a huge win and a huge moment for this team, and to do all that shit the week after was, you know, just a really frustrating set of events, I guess. Zach got a little testy in the post game too.
Zach started off the game pretty strong. I didn't see a lot of positive response to Zach early in the game from the beat writers, so that was interesting.
The minute starts missing passes.
Oh yeah, they're right up on
Zach Smith's completion percentage, and it's like, look, I get it. You know, that's the shit that plays. You're going to get the engagement that you want, but to me, it's just, you know, it was like it was last year, right? Like the Jets win against like the Titans and the Bengals, and it's like Mims watch. He played 2 snaps. It's like, cool. The Jets just won a fucking game. Like,
I don't remember anyone defending Denzel Mims when he had similar concerns. It's weird.
No. It's odd.
I don't know.
Yeah. It's just and it's so easy to do this shit when they're losing, but then like, it's funny because all we've known is losing for the past like 5 or 6 years. And it's been relatively the same people reporting and covering the team.
Yep.
And when they're good, you just see all the negatives, all the, you know, the Jets are, and look, I get it. Like Zach didn't play well the last 3.5 games, but like they're 5-2, and all it is, oh, is that the answer? Is that the answer? Is that this? I don't know, but can we just enjoy, like, can you write about Breece Hall? Can you write about the defense? Sauce Gardner just won Defensive Player of the Week, not Rookie of the Week, which he won again. Defensive Player of the Week. Didn't see anything on that.
Yep.
Quentin Williams having an All-Pro season coming into, you know, going into a contract. You would think he's like the 7th defensive lineman on the roster.
I'm reading some quotes here from Elijah Moore. This is a story that was published by Andy Vasquez, NJ.com. Actually, a pretty good follow. I happen to like him. Some quotes here. Of course, man, it's frustrating, Moore said after he had no catches on one target again in limited snaps against New England. But it is what it is. It's the cards I'm dealt. I'm trying to do the best with the cards I'm dealt right now. I can respect that. It's impossible to know what Moore meant by that because he didn't give a clear answer. He said there are a number of things to blame for it not working out this year within the offense. I wonder what he's talking about. Does he still want to be with the Jets, or does the trade request stand? It doesn't really matter, Moore said. I'm here, and while I'm here, I want to do the best that I can. I want to help all my teammates out. I love all my brothers, so we didn't get the win today, but we're trying to focus on the next game.
If you asked Elijah Moore who they play next week, do you think he would
know? So then he finished off. This is the last thing I'm going to read because this is just an outrageous quote. So you guys can say what you want. You guys can write what you want. It's going to be what it is, Moore said. At the end of the day, everybody's fit, trying to do the best that they can for each individual. I've got a family to feed too.
It's like I mean, not to the extent, but it's like Kyrie the other night being like, yeah, I have this platform to help people. And then like a minute later, the interview was like, wow, you guys are trying to like demonize me and put me on this pedestal for having a following. It's like, okay, man.
It's so tough, dude, because like I completely understand where he's coming from.
Correct,
Like
right, and
I
that's
can
kind of
really
like it's
see it. I totally get it. He wants to be the man. He wants to get the targets. He wants to catch the ball. He wants to be like his friends AJ and DK. I totally get all that.
right,
This is just not the way, dude. Like it's
right, and
just
that's kind of
not.
what gets that kind of what's that's what get lost in all of this, right? It's like I like you just said, we don't have a problem with the fact of what he wants to be and who he believes he can be. It's just the way
I
that he's
believe him.
going. Right. It's just the way that he's going about it. Which
Speaking as a fan, it's really unfortunate the way that he's going through it.
I agree.
And that's pretty
And
much it.
yeah. Yeah. I don't know, man. It's just frustrating. And it seems like it's been all building, right? Like it's been too good. So now everyone just unloads after a loss to the Pats. And look, I mean, they got a tough Buffalo team coming in. We'll see what they do on Sunday night against Green Bay. But
I don't know what the
going into the
fuck they're
bye,
gonna do.
like this, I don't want to say it just yet, but this has a chance to get ugly.
Of course it does. We play the Bills on Sunday. We have a bye week. We play the Patriots, and then we have the Bears, and then we're at the Vikings, and then we're at the Bills again. It's
I'm not just talking about play on the field. Like off the field.
nah. I don't buy into that. I don't buy into that. I think the coaches have it pretty well under control from that
I'm just
standpoint.
saying it's. We'll
I don't
see.
buy into that. I would need to
We'll
see a
see.
whole lot more to feel that way. I think the defense is pretty well. They're a pretty well-oiled machine, and like I think they understand their assignment. I think they know what they're walking into every week going forward, and they need to be the best defense in the league, and they play like it pretty much all the time, barring a couple drives here and there this week. I don't believe that. I don't buy into that. I think it'll be okay from that standpoint.
I hope so.
Takeaway for me from this game is that playoffs or not, you got to figure out what's going on with the quarterback the rest of the way. People have bad games. It happens. Corey Davis is a big, big, big thing for Zach. He's a big player for Zach. He makes a bunch of big catches. Not playing is a big deal. The offensive line, it was the first week without their all-pro, was going to be an all-pro AVT.
Going up against the guy leading the league in sacks and Judon.
Yeah, they're trying to work in Robinson. Patience is, I think, where I'm at. I think we'll see how it looks next week. Coming out of the bye, if you can't come out of the bye against New England next time around, like on this quick turnaround, just like Zach said, we'll see him in 2 weeks. If you can't get him on this turnaround, then like, when's it going to be? And the answer is probably never. And if that's what's happening, trade everything for Lamar, trade everything to get the number 1 pick in the draft. I don't give a shit. Like, you need to go.
Right. The team is, like we've been preaching, and it's like beating a dead horse. The team is built to compete now. You have to know going into next year what the deal is. Have to, good or bad, have to know.
Yeah. Anything else?
How was the atmosphere kind of overall? I don't think we really touched on that.
It was good in the parking lot. I think everyone was excited. It's hard to look back on now because I'm just like so upset about it, but
I get it.
Everyone was really excited in the parking lot from what I felt when I got in. When I got upstairs to my seat, it was like 12:30-ish, 12:45-ish, and it was still pretty empty, but everyone filed in pretty close to kickoff, and it was pretty loud early. People were begging for anything good to happen. That first long pass, the place went ballistic. People are just like, the fans are just dying. They just want good football. And it's literally the name of the show, like just enough to suffer. We're right. We're there. We are just good enough to suffer, and it hurts. It hurts really bad.
What the fuck did we call it this?
But this is the reason. Like, this is what we've been dying for. This is what we've been crying out for so long, and it's here now. And to put my positive fan hat on. I don't know what's going on with me right now. To wrap it up.
I get it. Long day. Jets lost. Tough.
Yeah, I'm just upset. To put a positive spin on the whole thing, it's if there's anyone I trust in adversity, it's Robert Saleh. And big test this weekend. We'll talk about it next weekend. We'll talk about it this week on the show. But I'm not saying I definitely don't think we're going to beat the Bills, but
no.
You need to be competitive in this game. This cannot be a blowout walkover victory for the Bills, because if that happens, then it can get bad. I agree that it can get kind of sketchy at that point. So
I will say before we end it, just on the Robert Saleh note, it was very encouraging to see the build up to this week and the amount of hype around this game for them to not really be outcoached and for them to not fall flat on their face in a game like this. Because we've seen it time and time again in years past where they come out and they fall flat on their face. I mean, the game was competitive it really only got out of hand. Yeah. So it's like,
it was never not competitive.
Right. So that was a small little encouraging thing. It may not mean anything, but it was good to see them in a game that's been hyped up like it has been, divisional opponent at home, them just not come out and lay a complete egg.
Yeah, I think it's just further confirmation of what we know. Like, this guy's for real. Coach is for real. And I feel really good about that over everything, no matter what.
Did have another thing, but go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, it just keeps popping in my brain. I knew this is one thing I want to talk about. I've seen a lot of people online really go after the play calling, and I just don't know what you want him to do.
I think it's easy to go after play calling.
Right. It's like
you can find whatever you're looking for in the immediate aftermath of the game. You can find whether you're unhappy with, you want to defend Zach, so you blame the play calling. You want to kill Zach because there's people who are way too negative on Zach, so they throw everything on him, and that's just not true. As with all things in sports and in life, there are 15 different reasons why something happens the way it does. Right. So I agree with you. The play calling thing is crazy. You can call as many plays as you want. The offensive line breaks down. The quarterback's running around. He doesn't just throw the ball away. Mistakes are going to happen.
Exactly.
And you know what's a great play? The reverse to Garrett.
Yeah.
That was a phenomenal play. I thought that was going to Brax. Because wasn't Brax also coming around?
I think so.
Or I forget who it was, but I was I had no idea that it was.
Yeah, you're right. Because I had the same thought.
Because I looked down on the bottom. I was like on the bottom for me, so I was looking down towards the bottom. I'm like, oh, there goes Garrett the other way.
He's so funny because he has like 2 or 3 moves, and then it feels like his brain, like the wiring gets shorted, and he's like stumbling all over.
Last positive thing, and then we're gonna wrap because I don't want to keep going around in circles. I was very proud of him for 2 reasons. Number 1, that reverse play was really great. And number 2, he had a catch. I want to say it was the second half. He ran to the sticks. I've been freaking out about that for weeks.
That first down where he jumped over the guy.
He made a great catch. Great throw by Zach. Great catch. Got the first down. I was happy to see that. Got to defeat Garrett. That's the other thing with the offense. Just flow it through him because you want to know what you got in Zach. You definitely want to know if you have a number 1 receiver or not, if you need to address that again in the offseason, because it seems like we might not have our second-round pick from last year heading into 2023. So you want to make sure you feel good about Garrett. So with that, I think we'll call it an episode. We'll be back later this week. We'll have Jay as well joining us, talk about the Bills. But in the meantime, this has been Just Enough to Suffer. There will be more suffering. There will be worse days. There will be good days. Just got to keep trucking. That was Just Enough to Suffer. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Jay, for the production behind the scenes. And we'll see you next time, everyone. Peace and love.